If you don't already know Rambite, prepare to be hooked by his vivid eye candy colors, striking effects, and captivating tweening. The animator, who has doubled his fan base twice in the past 2 years, now sits at 140,000 subscribers, even getting commissioned by music artist Baby No Money. But what's it like to be a teenager with thousands of eyes on you, watching your every move? Well, that's what I wanted to find out. My name is Soul. I spoke to Rambite, and I think you should hear his story. My first impression of Rambite was how upbeat he was. I don't think I've ever met an artist that isn't at least a little bit miserable, so speaking with someone who always seemed to be laughing was a good contrast. You may have already seen Rambite's Check or Two animation, but I found it so interesting that as a 17-year-old, Rambite was already getting commissioned for professional work. And not only that, but he had a repeat customer. Rambite, how did it feel to make that bread, and how much did he make?
It's magical. Dude, I was so happy when I found out that I'd be able to do whatever I wanted for those videos. The first one was around 200, I think. Check was 400 because it was on a shorter notice as well. They were just like, you know what, we'll PayPal you hundreds of dollars and we will wait for you. And I was like, okay.
So, how do you get big enough to be commissioned by a music artist? For those who've been around the AMC recently, you probably noticed Baby No Money appears to be on a spending spree, but you must be found somewhere.
It started at the beginning of high school for me, I think. It was, I believe, February 2023, I think, yeah. I released the Tell Me meme, and that was my first time ever uploading a video to reach 1 million views. I was 15, but I was really happy. I'd never gotten that much recognition for anything ever before in my entire life. And I was freaked out, but it was also really fulfilling and really awesome. And then that just kept happening a couple times over the next few years. And every single time I was still surprised.
Being a young artist going viral can have a lot of unintended consequences, but it's essential to recognize the depth of every view you get. I know many artists get frustrated when their work doesn't reach bigger numbers, and it can be hard to know what the algorithms will push and what they won't. But you need to remember that every view is an individual person looking at your work and appreciating it. Gratitude for what you have will take you a long way, and it keeps the times that your art does do well exciting as opposed to stressful and constantly a test of when the next time you'll go viral is. While I had my theories as to why it was that Rambite's videos have been doing so well, I also wanted to hear his thoughts.
It's probably just because I've been really consistent as well. Definitely, I feel like consistency and also just me learning about animation in my program. For uploading, I usually try getting it out either every week or every 2 weeks, but usually I just work on stuff when I'm not in school.
The reason that having a consistent schedule is so important to growth is because both the algorithm and your audience can expect posts from you. It encourages fans to check your page to see if there's anything new, especially if it's a somewhat tighter schedule. Unfortunately, sticking to routines is hard on its own. How do you manage your time and finish things in accordance with that?
You just gotta lock in. I don't know what to say other than lock in. When I have to work on something and I know I have to get it done, I just do it. I don't know how to explain it. I put on a YouTube video or I'll put on music and then I'll sit there and I'll go.
I think some people have a natural leniency to being better or worse at following due dates, but one thing that can help is knowing your work ethic and what makes you succeed. Although Rambite expresses it with ease, he still points out that he has a routine in working. That putting on a YouTube video or playing some music can be part of a string of habits that tells your brain it's time to focus up and work. It's up to you to discover what it is that makes you focus best, but I know that for me, having a clean workspace and being in silence is essential to my workflow. Even just the act of putting on my headphones with nothing turned on can help me begin to focus because I know it's a repeated action that I do every single time I work on something. Experimenting with different setups and surroundings can help you focus better and get things done. My other theory about Rambite's content is that the vast majority of his videos have incredibly bright, flashy colors and effects. The nature of animation memes is that they are fast, eye candy, and have a lot of replay value. So by having such crazy editing where there's constantly something to appeal to your eyes, he adds even greater appeal to his potential audience members. Listen, if there's one thing I want you to take from this video, I want it to be this. Rambite is an incredibly motivated individual, and they're also extremely positive about their work. I don't take that trait lightly, and I believe that they are highly correlated. So many artists are incredibly self-deprecating, always talking bad, thinking bad, seeing the worst in everything they make, and some argue that it pushes them further, a challenge to themselves. But I want to offer something else. In talking about his 6-year-old animations, Rambite described them saying,
They're all great. They're all legendary, I promise.
"Easy enough to pass off as another self-deprecating artist joke, but what I realized in my conversation with him is that Rambite is genuinely proud of everything he makes."
Because like when I look at my old work, it's like, oh, I was in like middle school and I made this and I was so happy about it, and thinking of little tiny me being happy about that makes me happy. Even if it's not as good as it is now, then like I was happy at the time, and that's awesome. Probably because I like how they like end up turning out, and I think it's like it's like really rewarding for me. That's definitely the most rewarding part, is just being done with something and then being able to watch it all the way through. When I finish a video, I'll like sit there like for I don't know how long, just watching it over and over again, because it's like, wow, I did that and it looks cool. When I was like 10 or something, when I first uploaded my first video on the YouTube, I finished it and I was like, wow, this is so good, and I was like kicking my little 10-year-old feet and I was like uploading it. It was really fun, and I think it's been about the same ever since, I want to say.
I cannot overstate how much this kind of mindset can free you from so much unnecessary stress and worry. It is the ideology that keeps you motivated and curious, excited and whimsical. It's important to understand that the energy you put out for yourself does impact you, and there is a very large part of not just art, but life shaped by your perspective. If you have confidence and trust in yourself, you'll be more likely to put yourself out into the world. And what comes out of that, maybe in a day or maybe in 3 years, will genuinely shock you. If you're sitting there and thinking, "That's not me though, I could never do that. I mean, my art is actually bad, so it's different," you're probably who I'm talking to. I think there's a lot to be learned from Rambite's optimism. More people should strive to be their own biggest fan, because sometimes you're all you have. Holding that trust in yourself will inevitably magnetize and attract people towards your positive nature. Also, you may not realize it, but a positive attitude allows you to be much more free and experimental with your art, which will inevitably make you improve faster. If you keep trying new things, seeing what works and what doesn't, you're going to get better a lot quicker than someone who does the same things over and over. Rambite uses a lot of different effects, so I wanted to learn why he chooses them.
I think they're fun. That's like to the extent of why I do a lot of things. I use Sapphire plugins for Vegas, and then there's this other one, I forgot what it's called. Boris FX Continuum Collection, for like lighting effects, like color grading and stuff. I usually have that sort of in mind before going into it, but sometimes I'll like accidentally throw an effect on something and I'll be like, wait, that actually kind of looks cool, and then I'll just roll with it.
Who knew that to get professional looking work, the key was clicking random buttons until you find something you like? Actually, a lot of Rambite's process is similarly spontaneous. He talks about how he usually dives straight into the work without too much advanced planning. People stress the importance of planning a lot, but I don't think it's something that you have to do. If you work better, if it's easier for you to get stuff done or even to get started by just jumping in blindly, there's nothing wrong with that. I know that I can really only get animations and larger projects done if I start the minute I think of them. People tend to worry so much about the execution, they never get to the point of executing to begin with. Rambite's workflow stops him from overthinking each aspect to the point of paralysis. He jumps straight into action, and action is what takes you further. Speaking of which, I think everyone has a point in time where something in art just clicks for them. Something that changes the way they view art fundamentally, shifting their whole mindset. I wanted to know what that moment was for Rambite.
So I think I was like 13 or 14, because I use Fire Alpaca. I would just use all like the default brushes that they have, except the normal, like painfully default, like pencil, pen, airbrush, whatever. I would use all these like fancy schmancy ones from like the brush store. And then one day I was like, what if I just use the pen? And so I started using the pen, and then I think I exploded or something. And then that sort of forced me to get really good at like doing line weight. So I think that was the big clicker for me, because before then I was so used to just like not really worrying about line weight and sort of things, and like depending on like a lot of brush textures, letting the brush do most of the work. But definitely after I got myself to do a good part of the work as well, I think that definitely clicked in my brain.
Getting caught up in all the fancy brushes and tools that art softwares provide to you is easy, but there's something to be said about the growth that you make when you limit yourself to the basics. It can move your focus from making things as pretty as possible to focusing on the fundamentals and technical skill demonstrated in your work. It's definitely not something you have to do every time, but Once in a while, it's not a bad idea to try limiting one of those tools you know you rely on, or just try new things in general. Probably the most standout video on Rambite's channel is Kikai Ketai, a celebratory 100k video where you can tell he went all out. The minute-long animation has several standout scenes, but I wanted to ask about one in particular. Firstly though, let's hear a little bit about the video and its process.
I started it in like June, and then I got it out at the end of summer, so like August. And I have never put that much effort and dedication into a video in my entire life. I locked in like I've never locked in before. It was really like, I've never done that much with more cinematic compositions and stuff.
Each scene is captivating in its own way, but I was most impressed about the axe throwing scene. It's all 2D animation and images, but somehow achieves a sense of depth and dimensionality to it. Knowing that Rambite uses Sony Vegas, a software he only uses the 2D capabilities of, I wanted to know how he achieved such a 3D effect.
I have so many workarounds for things, and it's stupid, but there's this like warp transform tool, and I'll export something, and then I'll have to transform it and animate it and like add keyframes and stuff. It's stupid, but it works. So the wall is actually just like a PNG. it's just a normal PNG that I added like that transform tool to, and then I did the axes on Adobe Animate, and I added that in there, and I added warp transform to that too, to sort of give it the illusion that it's sort of sticking there. But then I also like I added a little bit more pizzazz to it to make it look like it actually belonged there. But it's a whole lot of just putting the same stuff on the same stuff.
I call this process the do it until it works. Iterative tweaking and tinkering until you find what you like can be a great way to turn something good into something great. Also, I find it interesting how Rambite combined programs here. With the wall being made in Fire Alpaca, then edited in Vegas, taken to Animate to add the axes, and then taken back to Vegas for touch-ups, you can see just how far you can push your programs if you use each to its strength and mix them together, so don't feel afraid to try. But hey, while we're on the subject, what's it like to have 100k? What cons come with the fame? You see so many people who want to be popular, want to be famous, but you also constantly hear stories about the people who get there wishing they could go back to the old days or have a quieter life for themselves. What's the best and worst part of being a creator for you?
The best is how much recognition you get for the work that you're putting out, for how many hours you're sort of dedicating to this one thing. That's the greatest feeling in the world. But I feel like the worst is definitely probably the idea that like I feel like people sort of stop seeing you as a person at one point and see you as just sort of a name with a big number next to it. Just feeling like you're less of a person than you were before you started doing things. When you have a platform like that, it's not like you have to have some sort of level of responsibility to not like want to be friends with everybody or like be super friendly, like open with talking to anybody who like sees you online or like, you know, wants to talk to you. Because obviously a lot of like bad and negative things can come from that on both ends.
What people don't realize is that there's a reason creators tend to be more distant as they grow. And it's not even necessarily out of a want, but keeping your distance is healthier for everyone involved, as attachments and expectations can form between an audience member and a creator, which can lead to a lot of trouble. Allowing a community to blossom and just dipping your toes in it every now and then can be a great way to go about supporting your fans, but also supporting yourself and your health. It's vital to learn your boundaries and know what you can manage with others viewing your work. Know yourself and adjust accordingly. Okay, we've talked about the past and the present, so let's get to the future. Rambite, you've mentioned several times, and it's very clear in your comment section that everyone wants to know about it, the story behind your characters. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
See, the problem is it's all in my brain, and I hate putting it down. I know I have to, and I should. Because I get people yelling at me about this all the time. I swear, every time somebody asks me, what's the story behind your characters? What's the story? What's going on? What's happening here? It's just like, because I just wish I could like project it from my head onto a screen and just give it. Because but there is a story, and I'll probably put it out soon. I say that every single time, but like, I swear it's sooner than soon. I tell myself I have to do it this year, and then I don't do it this year, but trust this year, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna make something I'm gonna make a comic or I'm gonna write it out. I have to do something. 2025, the story drop. It's gonna make its way onto the stage. It's gonna dance for everyone. It's gonna be great. It's gonna happen.
Rambite, we can't wait to see it. In the year 2025. The current year. 25. Thank you so much to Rambite for speaking with me about his work and process. He's funny, charming, and somehow his personality is shockingly close to the look of this thing. Go check out Rambite for his stunning work and support him on his channel as well. Soul Candy is a project aiming to inspire and help artists. If you're interested in twice-a-month videos, including interviews with creators you know and learning about tips that revolutionized my art and process, stick around and consider subscribing and liking the video. That's all from me, so thanks for watching.